Is it a uniquely English thing, this desire, sometimes obsession, to sit beside the window? Is it the view, no matter what the location? Is it the feeling you have awarded yourself an upgrade over other people? Our tale here charts the progress of two school friends whose relationship develops over the years. Rachel is dominant, Joanna more reserved, passive, and prepared always to yield the window seat. But what happens to this dynamic, this hierarchy, as the years pass? My name is Dave McGee, your author and narrator. If you like what you hear, be sure to check out my novels and other short stories on Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Noble, and other e-book providers. Thank you for listening. Today, most people would call her a bully, but Rachel was my school friend and the only one I had. She was bigger than me and ready to fight my corner. Sometimes. But mainly, she made me feel good, cheered me up, and showed me how to laugh. I hated school. She loved it. "You need to make more friends, Joe," she'd say, knowing my name was Joanna, and that's what I preferred. But friendships didn't come easily to me. Most kids didn't even know I was there. The teachers couldn't complain about my behaviour, but they'd write things like "tries to the best of her ability" or "fair, could do better." I was always glad when it was time to go home. There was no school bus going to where Rachel and I lived, so each day at 3:30 she and I would walk the 100 yards or so to where we caught the scheduled service. One of our teachers, Mrs. Harrison, took the same bus, and she always boarded first. Then it was Rachel, and finally me. I never questioned this. It's just how it was. The bus was always a double deck, and once aboard, we'd climb upstairs. Rachel was always first, racing to the front seat, then plonking herself beside the window. Mrs. Harrison remained downstairs. It was non-smoking. But once we were out of sight and sound of her, we'd review the antics of the day and shriek with laughter. Or at least Rachel did. Only later would I recall the affected sound of her manic laugh and realise that anyone who didn't see us could as easily think it was me. And my friend had another tactic. She mocked the teachers, like we all did, but every so often she could be seen trying to win approval by bringing them small offerings. One day I explained this to my parents. "She has a foot in both camps," said my mum. "She's a sellout," Dad suggested. I understood neither term, but it didn't change my relationship with Rachel. Until one day when my eyes were opened, if just a little. It was winter and we boarded the bus as usual at the end of school. Upstairs it was suffocating. The air was full of cigarette smoke and sweat. Rachel went to the front, but did not hurry. She was looking around to see who else was on board. At the front, she gestured to me. "You can sit there if you like," pointing to the window, and I did so gratefully. It was only then that it dawned on me. The glass was covered in condensation, and when I wiped it, it only revealed that the outside was grimy beyond belief. There was no view. By now, Rachel was in conversation with a woman sitting in the seat behind us, a neighbour of her parents. Suddenly, she sounded very grown up. It was like she was a stranger. Rachel could finagle anything. She wore glasses, but her parents got her contacts as soon as she wanted them, coloured ones at that. She was a curvy teenager and soon realised that her shapeliness might be of special interest to the opposite sex. She lost no time maxing it out. Soon her cleavage was as much an enticement to the boys as free liquor. And whenever there was a party, folk would ask, "Is Rachel invited?" She excelled at karaoke and her Tina Turner was epic. But whenever she took to the stage, I would vanish at top speed, only returning when I heard the rapturous applause. And I'd watch as she sauntered triumphantly to the bar, where she'd select the boy whose reward was to buy her a drink. I'd remain in the shadows, clutching tomato juice. Just how I thought I'd ever get a boyfriend, I have no idea. But stranger things happened. And so it was that one night Ben came over and introduced himself. Of course, he knew Rachel, who didn't. But he seemed interested that I wanted to be a nurse. His mum was, so he was able to tell me all about it. Soon, we were serious and seeing a lot of each other. At first, we hung around with the same kids. But as time went on, we pulled away from them. This didn't go unnoticed, especially by Rachel. She seemed to resent my newfound independence. Then, if I didn't react, she would make unwelcome comments about Ben. That was a line in the sand for me, and so we saw far less of one another. It was a surprise when she got in touch at Christmas to invite Ben and me to a party. At first I declined. Then I felt emboldened. It was about time I started standing up to her. Ben and I enjoyed ourselves at the party, and I began to wonder just why I'd been so freaked out. When it was time to leave, Rachel appeared out of nowhere and said she'd booked a cab for the three of us. She had no business doing that, but try telling her. When the taxi turned up, she was acting drunk. I knew it was phony. I'd seen it before. We piled into the back seat of the cab, Ben in the middle. But that wasn't part of her plan. Rachel stalled the driver, then opened the door. "Ben, move to my other side, then you get to sit beside the window. Joe and I have some girl talk to do." Girl talk, my ass. She gossiped about a bunch of people I'd never met. She must have thought I was drunk or stupid. I was neither, nor did I miss for 1 second her hand groping Ben's thigh. Rachel later set things up so I'd swing by her place and find Ben and her together. I didn't know who to feel sorriest for, him or me. "Is this really what you want?" I asked him, but all he did was shrug. For Rachel, it was just an average day's work. I recovered, then backed away from relationships and threw myself into work, where my prospects looked better. After some time, I'd saved up and decided to have a vacation. I'd always wanted to go to York and see the sights. I'd hardly gotten there when the weather confirmed for me why so many travellers put France and Italy ahead of England, this wet little island. But I tried to remain positive. On day 3, I paused my schedule of museum and gallery visits and called into a twee tea shop called Maisie's. The place was dark, the gloom relieved by a small window at the far end of a long, thin room. There, 2 small tables were wedged so close together there was no room between them, and squashed in were 2 couples, dour but looking self-satisfied. I went to the counter and was served by a very nice man called Jeremy. Before long, we were chatting like old friends. He explained the window situation to me. "Folk will kill for a window seat. Don't ask me why. It's raining outside, and what's to see anyway? Just the street." I had to admit I didn't get it either. Then he made a wager. "Do you see this wall? They've painted a mural, full height, showing a beautiful island scene, probably Italy. Sun, sea, sand. The window seat's gone now, so next customers who come in will sit beside the mural. No kidding." He was right. I laughed out loud for the first time in ages, and when I did, I loved the way he looked at me, intensely, like a favourite pet that waits to see if it's pleased you. Before long, he was pleasing me on a regular basis. Rachel and I lost touch. It happens, even in a small town. I learned later that she'd married but couldn't have children. I was the proud mother of an adorable baby boy named Jamie. I used to call our little family the 3 J's, Joanna, Jeremy and Jamie. But somehow I knew that one day Rachel's path and mine would cross. Why? It's hard to say. She'd been mean to me and so many others, but she could be so kind and protective. I just couldn't understand it. Perhaps I never will. Out of the blue, I got a letter from her. No message or email, but a handwritten letter. She and Ben were enjoying a vacation in Tuscany. She couldn't speak highly enough of Italy, the people, the climate, the cuisine. She was even considering moving there. "You will be the first to visit us at our holiday villa," she claimed. I felt special. And the years passed. Rachel was our son's godmother. She was generous with gifts, less so with her time. But when Jamie gained a place at a prestigious university, I thought she should know, and I planned to tell her over coffee. "I didn't even know Waterstones had a cafe." Rachel's voice was contrary and she sounded disinterested. "Okay, if we must. See you at 11. I've always liked bookshops. To me, they are the perfect place to relax, chat, and enjoy a brew. I loved their coffee and was sure that Rachel would too. And as I climbed the stairs to the first floor, I could already detect the delicious aroma. To my surprise, Ben was at the counter, paying his bill. He seemed shocked to see me, and even more so that I was meeting Rachel there. "She's at hospital right now, tests or something," he mentioned, almost casually. It was my turn to be confused, as she'd told me that she was in town picking out fabric. No mention of hospital. But Ben was often vague, so I just figured he might have got it wrong. He left, and I placed my order. The cafe was almost empty, but for one elderly man and his Lakeland terrier, who was seated in the window. I knew him by sight, and always welcomed the chance to say hello and love on his cute pet. Waterstones bookstores are often located in prestigious old properties, and the window seat was large and imposing. Long brown drapes dissected 2 8-foot windows, beneath which was a long button-down leatherette sofa, room for 6 easily. The old man said little, like usual, but his dog compensated, licking and nuzzling me. That, the coffee, and just gazing out the window were enough for me. Then Rachel appeared, and the magic of the moment drained away. In the loudest stage whisper I'd ever heard, she rasped, "What were you thinking? You know I can't be anywhere near dogs, and I can tell you'll have been all over it. Let's go to Mark's, they're just across the street. By now it was raining. The news of Jamie's new life at St. Andrew's would have to wait until another time. The store was packed. Many had entered the building to escape the wet, and they headed for the cafeteria, which was nearly full. "Look," said Rachel urgently. "There's a seat there beside the window. You grab it and I'll get the coffees." I made a beeline for the one remaining table, which was soiled and piled high with dirty dishes. I sat down and attempted the soul-destroying business of flagging a staff member. Once she'd cleaned the table, I regained the seat, which faced out of the window, looking into the busy street. Plenty to see. The seat opposite, however, was wedged by the wall and had no window view. Moments later, Rachel arrived, tray in hand and seeming flustered. "Oh, Joe, be a darling and sit in this seat. I don't want her to see me. I simply must have my back to her." She'd won again. At that point, I lost it. "For God's sake, what is it with you and the bloody window seat? Why does it matter so much to you?" Rachel sat, motionless. "Things either matter or they don't," she said. I waited. She appeared to be on the point of tears and paused for so long I was ready to change the subject. When she continued, "And what I was going to tell you doesn't matter, that is." We both kept our news to ourselves. Rachel was a fighter. No one doubted that. And Ben, her quiet, uncomplaining husband, found within himself a manly capacity he never expected to need. Together they rode the roller coaster of the terrible disease she had, the wasting away, the hair loss, then the weight gain, and the endless drudgery of hospital treatments that you can only be grateful for. That must surely have been the hardest thing for Rachel. But when I first caught up with her, she was bullish. "You used to get 6 months, that was your lot, but these days it's much more like 5 years, or more." I applauded her optimism. What else can you do? Then I found it increasingly hard to meet with her. She and Ben travelled and spent time in Italy where the climate suited her. But that couldn't continue indefinitely, and the time came to return home. Not long after, she asked me to visit her in the hospital. She was alone and had taken trouble to look as good as she could. She wanted to talk about school days. "Do you remember Mrs. Harrison?" "Of course." "And the fun we had on the bus?" I nodded. "Do you remember how I'd always push you out of the way to get on the bus first?" I could not reply. "I remember one day you tried to overpower me and go first. I pushed you so hard you hit the wall. Mrs. Harrison didn't see, but a passenger on the bus did, and they spoke to her after she boarded." I couldn't face Rachel. I told her I didn't recall the incident, but I did. I could have told her that I remembered Mrs. Harrison meeting my mother to discuss my friend's violent behaviour and what was best for me, homeschooling, a different school, or even relocation, all because some pushy, big-boned girl was unhappy with herself and wanted to take it out on me. Now was the time to confront her. Yes, I do remember how as monitor you handed out the break-time milk, keeping some back for your favourites, how you hung out with the older class kids because they were cool, how you cheated, lied, bullied. I don't forget a single thing you did or got away with." Rachel laid back, sighing. "Well, I suppose I had that coming." We sat in silence for the longest time. She was tearful. "There's a chair. Please take it and sit by the window. Enjoy the view. You've earned it. Then describe what you see for me." I did. A blue sky, dappled sunlight through trees, children playing in the nearby park, surrounded by a tapestry of spring flowers. Just then a nurse entered to check on the patient. She stared at me, bewildered, as I continued my elaborate narration. I returned her glance and winked. The nurse did her checks, then suggested the room was too bright and might benefit from adjusting the blind. As she did so, she looked out of the window to confirm what I'd just described. By now, Rachel was asleep. Only then did I look away from what I'd really beheld, an ugly concrete wall facing her viewless window.